All right, let's see. There we go. Hey, this time, as usual, I said I'd be testing out some new things, but don't worry, I kept all the muting. Having said that, at a minimum, I fixed it before someone had to tell me. Hello, Unveiling. Hello, Hunter D. Hello, all. Thank you to all our patrons and supporters, everyone who's been a huge help. We've been trying out a lot of new stuff and doing some updating, and couldn't be more pleased with it. It's taking a very long time, but our systems were in need of an upgrade. I will say this, yeah. Um, well, we do have a few changes. This is for people who are interested in the new interface. This is not a new interface. This is overtime. This is not in time. In time is our regular show of interviews and so on and so forth. Overtime is our breaking news, and that is the yeah. That is the. I'm gonna be talking about one of our mods. I think a little later in the show. A bad troublemaker who just has been problems from day one. But we'll get to that. At any rate, I did want to say also to anybody who wants to have any comments put into the show, we will be pulling comments up. But also anybody who ats in time from Twitter during this show, we will have access to those comments and be able to put them in. Just one of the new little things that we've got here. So let me get into. I think we've got a lot of interesting things to cover tonight, so I'm going to dive right in. But thank you again to our patrons, our supporters, people who subscribe to the channel. And if you like the show, please don't forget to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out. And you can always come to our Discord and talk to us there. This chat is integrated with the Discord, so if you aren't actually watching on YouTube, you can still keep up on the Discord. We will be streaming the audio to that Discord sometime in the next couple of weeks. Make it so if people don't have immediate access to YouTube, they can still keep up with the show. So, the Associated Press has just reported a few hours ago that China, long known for a severe overpopulation problem and draconian one-child per family laws, has been subjugating minority women to forced birth control, forced abortion, and forced sterilization with threats of detention and hard labor for those who do not comply, starting with a religious crackdown in 2017 and a tripling of the fines for families with more than a single child. This has been what appears to be an effort to curb the Muslim population, even while encouraging members of the Han majority to, subtly encouraging them to have more children. This is really, we know that they've been doing a very strict monitoring of the population and of families in China, and families could only have one child. But to see now forced birth control, forced abortion, and forced sterilization is really quite shocking. Quote, "It's genocide. It's not immediate, shocking, or on-the-spot genocide, but it's slow, painful, and creeping genocide," said Joanne Smith Finley of England's Newcastle University. These are direct means of genetically reducing the Uyghur population. Uyghur is one of several minority groups which they have been very concerned with trying to limit that population. And what you can see there is the starting in 2016, 2017. Actually, that goes back as much as 2015. The two minorities, the Hotan and the Kashgar, all of a sudden their population or reproduction rates drop precipitously. The New York Times is reporting that Russia secretly offered bounties to Taliban-linked militants for the deaths of coalition forces, including U.S. forces. According to the Times, Trump was briefed on this in last March, and the White House's National Security Council confirmed this, both by participating in interagency discussions on the issue in March and by filing a formal diplomatic complaint to Moscow, demanding answers to these bounties and demanding that they all cease. Nonetheless, Trump has come out today and denied that he was briefed, saying that he has just been informed about it and that he asked why he hadn't been briefed prior, and that was because it wasn't credible enough for him to be briefed, and he's only now just finding out. The Washington Post has since confirmed the Times' story and said that, in fact, this is now a large problem for the Trump administration, since it's further evidence that Russia is engaging in open hostilities against the United States, but Trump refuses to see the former Soviet Union as anything but a friend and ally and believes the word of Putin, a former KGB spy and assassin, over his own intelligence agencies. Today, Judge Roberts has done something rather remarkable. He has, for the second time in as many weeks, sided with the court's liberal bloc against Keystone conservative agendas. The first was in granting LGBTQ protections against discrimination in the workplace, and now by invalidating a Louisiana regulation on physicians that was put in place ostensibly to make abortions prohibitive to actually carry out. This appears to represent a doctrinal shift in Roberts, who is now becoming more moderate and is now apparently replacing Kennedy as the swing vote on the court. There was thunderous applause in the Mississippi Senate as they passed a resolution to retire the state flag, which contains the Confederate battle flag on the lower left corner. This makes Mississippi the last state to finally remove any overtly Confederate symbols from their flag. There was another shooting in Seattle's Capitol Hill Occupy protest, or CHOP, zone today, leaving one man dead and a 14-year-old boy critically injured. Seattle Police Chief Carmen said when investigators arrived, they found a white Jeep Cherokee riddled with bullets on 12th Ave. We were told that there were two men inside the vehicle and both had been shot. Given the short duration of the existence of the CHOP zone, the small area, right around 6 blocks for about 2 weeks, this makes it per capita one of the most violent places in the United States, with 5 shootings and 2 deaths in a 2-week period. Reports are that people are starting to leave the area en masse. The population is down significantly, and the chief of police has now said that the violence is, quote, a real problem, and that she would not allow that to continue to happen. Meanwhile, and this is interesting, in a rather bizarre twist, and you will have to bear with me here, there was a Dejuan Young, who was shot 2 weeks ago Friday in the CHOP area, has started a GoFundMe for his medical bills. He has also decided to sue police for not coming to his aid sooner. Now, we'd like to have on Uncivil Law to discuss the ramifications of that. He is now starting to claim that he was outside the CHOP area. The reports are that he was actually inside it when the shooting occurred. He has also said that he was approached by 4 or 5 men. They used racial epithets. They shot at him. The number of shots and the shock, he was thrown back onto the car, and all this happened outside the CHOP area. CHOP or Chaz, depending on whether you think they've seceded from the Union or not. Now, he's given a description of this. The description can be found on Talkify. He has also talked about his desire now to sue the police for not coming to his aid soon enough. Now, we did show this is in fact the same incident where we showed the police having to assemble and going in against a group of people who really certainly did not want them there. This here now is this is Mr. Duan Young from his hospital bed in Harborview Medical Center.
Yo, I was shot in Seattle at Chaz on Friday. The cops left me out there to die. I need help with somebody in legal or media to get my story told and get it out there. I got shot 5 times. Need you guys' help.
That is Mr. Young asking for help to cover medical bills and a lawsuit against the police for not coming to his aid in time. When that video came out, a number of people actually recognized him, and they recognized 2 separate groups of people recognized him. The first was a journalist from Scribner who recognized him as the man who had assaulted him earlier in the, I believe it was in fact that same day. The reporter was live streaming and also streaming or recording the CHOP leader Raz. Mr. Young apparently, purportedly, saw this, assaulted the man repeatedly, and tried to steal his phone. Some of that assault was in fact recorded, and what they found was that and that is a part of, I think, the assault there. But they actually have it they have it recorded. The shirt, shoes, pants are all identical to what Mr. Young was wearing. Mr. Young also had tape on his left hand. This is what he was wearing on the day of the assault. This is what if you see the video, the man committing the assault was wearing the same shirt, had the same tape on his hands, and had, this is, I believe, shortly before or after the assault. Sorry, I forget exactly when that one was taken. And in fact, in the recording, he identifies himself by his initials as DY. So first off, and it's not, nobody deserves to get shot, even if you've just committed an assault. But people have been going to his GoFundMe for having been shot repeatedly. And what they find is, if you're not careful, you go to the GoFundMe and you read the description, where on June 17th, Mr. Young was brought into Harborview Medical Center in critical condition, his body riddled with bullets. He was in a coma for 3 days, nearly didn't survive, lost a piece of his lung, had a bullet removed from his spine. Interesting thing is, that was June 17th. Not of this year, not of the year before. 2 years ago, in 2018, within the same week, he was shot the same number of times, sent to the same hospital. 2 years ago to the week, and set up a GoFundMe for his medical injuries at that point. And it's wow. And it honestly doesn't matter. He obviously is in significant medical distress and needs assistance. But I thought it was an interesting coincidence. The Simpsons will no longer have white actors voicing minority characters, and Mike Henry, the voice actor who played the part of Cleveland in The Family Guy, has, for the last 20 years, has resigned so that the role can go, quote, to a person of color. The nation of Iran also issued an arrest warrant for President Trump today and 35 others in the killing of General Qassem Soleimani, and they have forwarded that arrest warrant to Interpol and have requested that they assist in the arrest. The game streaming service Twitch has temporarily banned President Trump for hateful content, and Reddit today has banned the the Donald subreddit, an influential subreddit with 800,000 users. It's a pro-Trump community, which has been, according to Reddit, constantly violating its rules on harassment and hate speech. This joins Twitter, who has now been fact-checking Trump's tweets, flagging those with violent and inappropriate content, and otherwise pushing back on a great deal of what Trump has been saying or doing. In fact, today, Trump retweeted supported tweets from white supremacists, and has in the past engaged in activities from witness tampering and intimidation to threatening of war crimes by targeting civilians and cultural sites, all on Twitter. And in this, the worst national health crisis in 100 years. Almost, once again, speaking of almost 100 years to within a year or two. Donald Trump remains largely quiet or in denial about what's going on. He has, Mike Pence has come out and has been suggesting that things aren't as bad as they seem, and has said that he has denied yesterday that the early openings had caused any kind of resurgence of COVID-19, and has praised the leadership of Donald Trump for his overwhelming success in dealing with COVID-19. Worldwide, deaths top 500,000 now, and at least 14 states are either pausing or considering pausing their reopening, or even rolling it back. Texas and parts of California have closed bars. Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami Beach are now all going to be closed for the holiday. 3 hours ago, Los Angeles County health officials said that conditions there are deteriorating rapidly. They said that hospitals are now at risk for getting overwhelmed. This is a graph of what they are anticipating will happen at the present rate. Now you can see here where we are, there's a dotted blue line going down the middle of this graph where we are. It's just at the start of that red zone. And the problem is that even as that bump goes up, the red area there is the demand for hospital beds. So the demand for hospital beds goes up in a much more elongated way, proportionate to the already significant increase in actual COVID cases. Los Angeles County is right now at just about their limit for ER and hospital beds, and they are at the very bottom of that curve. This here is a prediction of the demands for ICU beds in Los Angeles County. You can see where they currently intersect right there, again down at the very bottom of the red area there. The United States has 4% of the world's population. 4% of the world's population. We have over 25%, almost 30%, at last I checked, I think it was 28 or 29% of the COVID deaths. Almost 30% of the COVID deaths in the United States, despite the fact we have only 4% of the population. That is what Pence calls overwhelming success and leadership in dealing with COVID. Once again, we are at record highs with 41,075 new cases reported yesterday, a total of 126,000 deaths and nearly 900 new reported deaths every single day in this country. More than 30 states have rising numbers of COVID, and the CDC, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, has come out today and said that there is a possibility that the actual numbers could be up to 24 times higher than reported. Why? Because we don't have extensive testing. As we have to say almost nearly every show, Donald Trump, who lauds the great testing in the U.S. and says that that is the reason for the the increase in numbers of reported cases. First of all, that would have no impact on the number of deaths. We have 30% of the world's deaths, with only 4% of the population. Why? Because of testing. You don't need to test a dead body. They're dead. On top of that, we actually have less testing than almost any other industrialized nation, and we still have more cases than just about anywhere else in the world. Brazil is ahead of us. We're catching up quickly. Because of this, China is now banning people from the U.S. China is banning U.S. citizens from coming in. So is the EU. So is Russia. This, let's do one more map here. This is a map of the new cases in the week, and there are only 3 states in which the numbers are still going down. They've been reversing in nearly every direction. So that is what's been going on in the last 48 hours. A couple of interesting things. Unfortunately, Ethan couldn't make it. And I certainly, to try to cover some of this, China has always been against any form of organized religion, but they appear to be, and they've targeted Christians, they've targeted every major religious organization, but appear in particular now, they're targeting all minorities, it appears, for, in essence, genocide. They're trying to reduce or remove people of a specific ethnic group by forced sterilization and abortion. On top of that, it's been known now that Russia's been paying a bounty for U.S. soldiers killed by the Taliban and Taliban-linked militia. And, Trump's known that for a while. He denies knowing that, but his own National Security Council has acted on that information, has made demands of Russia that they stop, and has been speaking with other agencies and quoted Trump and been speaking on his behalf. So he knows. He just doesn't care, or has forgotten, because I don't know if he's seen. I don't know what it is. He either doesn't know, he knew. He's either forgotten, doesn't care, or is embarrassed that he hasn't done anything about it. Who knows? Roberts becoming the swing vote is obviously very interesting. It does happen where judges, once they no longer, because it's a lifetime appointment, they no longer have to run for anything. They don't have to appease any constituency. They can stay there forever, and they tend to change. I did see something, Hillary and her emails. I'd like to say one thing about Hillary's emails, and this is something that I've always, because I used to argue at that point. I was no fan of Hillary's, but oh my God, 10 times better than Trump. I will say this: Hillary did not delete a single email ever in that whole scandal. And I say that, and I get accused of trolling and usually shut out. But most people will start to remember at least some of the details, and what James Comey testified to those details being. You read the testimony or see the testimony. She didn't delete any emails. What happened was she instructed, as part of a regular purge, just to get rid of backlog emails, she instructed that they just clean up her email accounts and delete a whole bunch of them. She notified a private firm that manages the email accounts. They told a technician to do it. Technician was too busy playing Nintendo or doing whatever, and he failed to do it. He did report having done it, however. Hillary got the report that those emails had been deleted, and she went about her day. 2 months later, she received a subpoena saying that she had to keep all of her emails, everything intact. When message of that subpoena came back to that organization, the technician had what he later described as a, quote, oh shit moment, where he realized he was supposed to have deleted these emails. Now, legally, he can't do it. They weren't deleted. They're there now. You can't touch them because the subpoena protects them. He was supposed to delete it. He decides to delete them in flagrant violation of the subpoena. Trump was able to somehow cast this as Hillary deleted the emails in violation of the subpoena. She thought the emails were gone, and James Comey did, in fact, give him immunity so that he would testify truthfully as to whether or not she had instructed him after the fact to delete those emails. All of the evidence, including an email conversation back and forth between her and the company on both sides, showed she believed the emails had already been deleted legally as part of routine maintenance on the server. Other server issues, anything you want to get into, I don't know. I always found that one rather annoying. As to Dejuan Young, I don't, obviously, he does not deserve what happened to him. I do think whether or not, if he was just outside the zone, yes. Well, listen, inside the zone, the police are required to, I don't care whether they think they're autonomous or not. I don't care whether they think they've seceded or not. They are not allowed to do what they're doing. For now, just to prevent violence, it's just sort of being permitted until people figure out that they've got a problem. They haven't had their water or electricity shut off yet, but frankly, they're getting that for free if they're really their own country, which is not what they claim. But when they first went in as the autonomous zone, Chaz, that was in essence what they were saying. I don't think they meant to. Once they realized that, a whole bunch of them said, let's call it CHOP instead, and not actually declare ourselves a separate country. But if you're going to block police, there's going to be a problem. Now, the police clearly believed he was inside the zone. That means they have to get a whole force, they have to amass that force, and they have to go in. They can't just go in one at a time. And they were blocked from going in one at a time, and they've been blocked from doing the investigation after. So how and where he's going to get with that, I don't know. Obviously, I hope he's okay. Nobody should have to pay the kind of medical bills he's going to have to pay. We've talked about socialized medicine before, but I do genuinely, I find it just a large. As soon as he does his request for money, actually to sue the cops, that was his second GoFundMe. Actually, I believe is not for the medical bills. I think only the first GoFundMe from 2 years ago is for the medical bills. This GoFundMe is for lawyers to sue the police. Oh boy. I don't know. At some point, we're going to need to have a discussion about whitewashing has been going on in Hollywood and on television for far too long, and it's where roles that could easily be played by people of the ethnicity that the role is cast as. I mean, excellent people who can play that. Most notably was, and someone will have to remind me, I honestly have forgotten his name, from Breakfast at Tiffany's. It was, I think he was the bad guy in Iron Man 2, but I've forgotten his name. But he played a Chinese man in Breakfast at Tiffany's in a phenomenally racist way. But it's interesting. I'm curious what happens if you have a black actor who doesn't sound black enough for the. I think this with The Simpsons and with Family Guy. I think this is going to get interesting and has a lot of interesting questions. So I'm hoping we're going to have a chance to deal with this at some time. And I'm sorry, I haven't been actually paying too much attention. It was Mickey Rooney. That's right. And I want to say Mickey O'Rourke. I confused Mickey O'Rourke and Mickey Rooney. Wow. Can we edit that? Is there a way? Nobody's recording this, right? Yeah, that's a little. Speaking of, so we also have, it's just a concern in regards to, let's just see here. And I want to make sure that I got this right. I think I do, yeah. So in regards to, let me make sure I've, okay, yeah. So we ended up getting a, we have a mod on In Time who, to be honest, I had been warned has been trying to take over the universe. I didn't take it seriously. I didn't take it, at least at a minimum, trying to take over the internet. I tend to not take these things as seriously as I should. I know. This is my bad. It's arrogance, really, on my part. But I now finally have conclusive proof that this mod has decided that, or at least admitted he is entirely capable of destroying and taking over the internet if he so chooses. I think really that just speaks for itself. There's nothing more to say. See, everybody always knows. See, everybody knew. Everybody knew who it was. Hank Azaria has actually quit from Apu well before this happened. Hank Azaria quit from Apu, I think, over about a year ago. And recently, The Simpsons has now decided that they will have only minorities voicing the minority roles. And again, this was not a decision, to the best of my knowledge, made by Family Guy. It's just the man who voices Cleveland decided to, shouldn't Agrippa be here to defend himself? No, I only attack Agrippa when he's not here to defend himself. If he showed up, I'd just, it was Tony's idea. I got no idea what you're talking about. Sinners. Apparently we have, we have more than one evil genius. What is it about In Time that attracts the evil geniuses? The genius part I don't mind. It's nice having geniuses around, but it's the evil part that just gets to me. All right, so anyways, I think that's it. The COVID data is really starting to get bad, and I'm going to put back up again. This is Los Angeles County is reaching a state of panic. The medical officials there are reaching a state of panic, and again, it's this that blue line. It looks like where it says where we are today. It looks like that is talking about the top of the red. No, that's a blue line at the very bottom of that red graph. So that is the prediction, and they are already starting to get overwhelmed. So I'm afraid it looks like Los Angeles is going to end up like New York was just a month and a half ago. I think Dallas is probably going to end up that way. Parts of Florida. So as I've constantly said, unfortunately, we're gonna cover it. I think our coverage is going to need to, as those states enter a triage state, we're going to have to cover more. But for now, and yeah, somebody had pointed out, I think there's a lot of stuff that has been. There's a lot of stuff that, under any other set of circumstances, would be breaking news, and now it's just sort of like, no, we're going to let it go. I think, yeah, the sodomy geese would be breaking news, but anything short of that, I think we're going to cover the COVID numbers and we're going to go. But so thank you all very much for tuning in. And I think we don't have actually a lot of questions per se right now, so I think we're probably going to call this a bit of an early show. We have Landon Knoll on tomorrow to discuss DC statehood. Why isn't DC a state? Is there anything to be done about it? What about American Samoa? What about Puerto Rico and other quasi, either what is it? Puerto Rico is it started as Puerto Rico, it's not a district, it's a, Puerto Rico is a province. No, it's not. Oh, God, I'm tired. You'll all have to excuse me. I'll probably get 3,000 people putting that into the live chat. I don't know. Agrippa's not Australian. Australia doesn't exist. We've already demonstrated that repeatedly on this show. No, it's not a Commonwealth, but it doesn't matter. So as to why Australia doesn't exist, that's a whole long. Actually, I should be a little careful on that, given the history of that's a joke. It's a territory. It's a U.S. territory. Thank you. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Agrippa is Australian. Australia does exist. Don't ban this channel forever for saying that. I really shouldn't make jokes like that, given what happened to Landon. Then we're going to have on Christopher Mowdy for An interesting set of 3 new studies have come out which seem to indicate that the number of COVID cases can be linked to who watches what media source, and that even within Fox News, certain shows like Hannity have different rates of infection for people who regularly watch that show than other ones like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson notably is a dissenter in Fox News for having, from the beginning, talked about the severity of COVID-19, whereas Sean Hannity has called it a plot from the Democrats and all these other things, and is constantly downplayed it, as has most of Fox News. So we're going to be going over each of those 3 studies with Christopher Maudy on a 2-part show starting on Thursday and Friday. We'll be doing those a little early. Those will be 2 p.m. So we got that up on the calendar, and then we have our Patreon hangout coming up, as well as Xander in person, and myself will be having a pleasant discussion on the Second Amendment. That should cover our production schedule. I will also be a guest on Prolib's channel on Wednesday. He will be starting his new show on Star Trek, and he and I are going to be discussing it. I am a Trekkie. I haven't watched or even really thought about the show all that much, really, since having kids, because that changes your viewing. I know what happened on Dora the Explorer last week. Map got kidnapped, and Swiper actually got the map for the first time ever. It was a shock. I mean, it was just a shock. And I thought it was going to be a 2-parter, but Dora convinced Swiper to give up the map, and everything was fine. That's my television. I haven't. Stranger Things, and Lost was the last. That's how Lost was the last show I actually got to watch regularly. But we're going to be talking about Star Trek nonetheless. I think that's going to be a good time. I hope you guys will join us. That will be on his channel. We'll link to that. In the meantime, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to catching you again next time. Night all.